Lovely, thank you, Joe. Just tell me when. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Amenities, Land and Property Committee. It's Wednesday, the 7th of April. Welcome to the meeting. Before I start, just a sort of a particular note to say thank you to the officers. We've got a particularly long agenda this evening, this afternoon. And I was really pleased that we've been given plenty of notice. We've got all of the papers out in good time, so hopefully the committee members have been able to read everything in full, which is always good. And also thank you to whoever got the papers on the Town Council website before the Easter bank holiday. That I noticed they were all up there, so I'm very grateful for that. We'll kick off with the standard agenda items then. First, please, 907. Does anybody have any declarations of disclosable pecuniary interest, please? And I think my chat box is working, so if you do want to contribute and you're able to, please indicate in chat or raise your hand if you don't have a chat function. So I don't see any indicating on the first one, so we'll move on to 908. Do we have any apologies for absence, Chris?
I have an apology from Councillor Brahim, but everybody else is present, Chair. Lovely,
thank you very much. And 909 minutes, to confirm the minutes of our meeting held on the 3rd of March. They were received by Council on the 30th of March. Are the committee content that they're a true and accurate record, please? Yep, everybody happy?
Yes, Chair.
Yes. Thank you, Dennis. I can see a thumbs up from Jane. Thank you, Jane. 910, action points and updates. To receive a verbal update from the officer and chairman on any updates. Mark, do you have anything in addition to your report today? I know that it's a bit all-encompassing, so I should imagine there's too many other updates to note.
Nothing that isn't elsewhere on the agenda, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. The only one I noted from the minutes last month, which I don't think is covered today, and I'm just going to find it quickly to remind myself. Under community engagements last month, we said that we would gather a list of small grants awarded in the past year so that they can be published on the website and social media. I might have missed it, but is that still to be done?
Is Alan with us? I didn't see the list.
I am here. I'll do it as part of the year-end finalisation, so we can table it our next ALP meeting.
Brilliant, that'd be lovely. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we didn't lose that in time, so that's good. Thank you very much. Moving on to 911/20 health and safety. Mark, do you have anything from your side on health and safety?
Only to say that the tree safety works seem to be progressing well. They're getting through that, and there'll be a day when they hire in a grab lorry to shift the big tree trunks that have been requested, and also at the same time the piles of logs in Castle Park.
Lovely. If there's any piles left, I've noticed they've been disappearing over the last week or two. So
makes sense for us, yeah.
There won't be many left soon. Thank you. I think is Chris Harvey with us? I'm sorry.
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm here.
Lovely. Thanks, Chris. Anything from you to add to the health and safety?
Yeah, we've had a comment from a resident. The Castle Lane fencing along Castle Park at the bottom of Wooden Hill. One of the trees has come down and it's really laying across the path, and people have to duck to get under it. It's not very good. Okay. I explained that very well. As you go along, as you walk along the path between the new metal fencing and what we call Wooden Hill, as the old locals will know, is that long, narrow hill there. At the bottom, one of the bushes, type tree things, just seem to be blown down a bit and is very low across the path, and people have to duck to get under it.
Okay, I'll have a look at that. I mean, if it's something we can deal with, I'll do it myself. If not, we can get the contractors onto it.
It's only a small bushy type thing. It's not a huge great tree or no.
That'll be me then.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Lovely, thank you for that, Chris. Just a note on health and safety, if anyone, I mean, it's a standard agenda item, so if anybody has any health and safety matters of their own to note, you know, please do raise them. That's what that item is for on the agenda each month. Normally we get these things mopped up in the other items, but it's an item for all of us, that one, which I think is really useful. Thank you. I don't see anybody else indicating, so we'll move on to 9.1.2, Street Scene and Countryside Officers Report. Shall we start with yourself, Mark, and then we'll move on to Roger?
Yeah, okay. Well, as you said, Chair, because it's given such a long agenda, I don't propose to sort of really go into any of this in detail. I think everyone's had the chance to see it, so I'm happy to just take comments. The only update I might like to give is that we did today the path at the plane tree between the plane trees at Ford Meadows, so that's been, the surface of that has been improved. But yeah, basically, I think everyone's had a chance to see the report, and so yeah, are there any questions, or do you want to ask members if they want to make any comments? I will do my best to answer them.
Lovely, thank you, Mark. Just before I take comments, just to say sort of thank you really on behalf of the committee. I know how much work you personally have put into the trim trail and the play area, and it's been really nice over the last month to see both of them come to fruition. So I know it was sort of started by Ros, but definitely sort of finished up by yourself. So thank you for that. I can see Jane indicating, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It was picking up on play parks, if that's possible, please. Attending the recent informal gathering of Cora, ready to restart their meetings in the virtual world. And concern was expressed over the Bergamot play area, in particular the seesaw, which I understand was scheduled for some repair or replacement work over a year ago. But obviously with the world changing as it did, it hasn't happened. Do we have a timescale available for that, please?
I'm afraid not, with Roger not here. I haven't got any update on that. So yes, can I get back to you when he returns, and we can get an answer for you, we'll see what's happening with it.
That would be lovely, thank you.
Lovely, thank you for raising that, Jane. Do any other members, please? I can see a hand in the corner. Is that Stuart Wright?
It is, thank you, Chair. Just one for Mark, really. Noticed where we had the trees come down in Castle Park, we've left the stumps there. I don't know if there's any scope of chainsawing them into a chair or something like that, just rather than a bland old stump there, just to show a bit of TLC. Whether we have any chainsaw ability with Roger, or whether it's something we can look at if we do have some chainsaw boys around.
He is licensed to do sort of ground level stuff. Obviously, the felling has to go out to contractors, but he is licensed. I will ask him if he sort of fancies using his creative and construction skills to have a go at that.
Okay, thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Stuart. Anybody else, please, on Mark's Countryside Officers Report?
Yes, please, Terry.
Yes, I think that was Mike.
It's Mike. Thanks. A lot of stuff here. I'm really just firstly to congratulate Mark on all the various bits of progress that have been made, including the ones I stood and watched this morning when 5 guys or 6 were working really hard to improve a particular area, which I'm sure Mark can refer to. In particular, I know it's just been mentioned that the trim trail. If you look at the trim trail and the play area together and the picnickers, one day over this long weekend there were over 100 people there. I just think it's been a huge success. It wasn't my bright idea to begin with, but I really think we picked it up, and it's already proved itself. And of course the cycle racks are now in place as well, so good improvements on Castle Park. One small niggle, which is a common one I've made, and I know Terry's dealt with it once or twice. A lot of the open areas have bins that are overflowing or difficult to empty, and are therefore not being emptied. One at the skate park at the moment, for example, but lots along the river and various other places. I don't know whether there's any more permanent solution, Terry, we can find to that, but it really would be great to see that. the bins are overflowing and therefore there's rubbish around them are emptied a bit more frequently. It can only get worse as more people come out in the summer, and we don't seem to be able to get the frequency of emptying right.
To be fair, if I may come in just quickly, Chair, I think they were overflowing on Tuesday. I think most of the ones on the river have been done. They seem to have been done today. So I think there was obviously a bit of a lag with the Easter holidays. They weren't sort of right on it on the Tuesday, but I think, to be fair, a lot of those have been done. And you know, I do think it is worth reporting things on the Breckland. There is a overflowing bin button that you can use. So if there is an ongoing issue, then with particular sites, I'm happy to raise it. Otherwise, I think it is worth trying to use their reporting system and sort of and keep sort of pressure up that way, perhaps.
Yeah,
I mostly agree. I'll just add to that, though. I agree with you that there's been a very long weekend and it's obviously been heavily used at that time for various reasons. I'll just remark unkindly to Breckland perhaps that it's not a surprise. We knew this weekend was coming. They don't seem to be able to plan in advance. It's always a retrospective, and that's a pity.
Yeah, it is something. I'll bring in Jenny and Jane in a second. It is something, Mike, that I've personally noted over the last couple of days, and I have raised it before, as you know. Most bins along the river were full over the Easter weekend, as they often are on a bank holiday, sometimes on a general weekend. But as Mark says, you know, by Tuesday and some today, they have been emptied. I mean, I think it's encouraging that so many people are out and about and so many people are using the bins. And it is important we get the frequency right, because certainly the one I noted at the Gentle Bridge on Monday was overflowing to the extent that everything was going in the river, which was frustrating because you'd hope if it was full, people would take it away with them. But there is an issue with frequency of emptying at the moment. Jenny, please, I saw your hand go up first.
Can I just go on to, there's one more, if I may, just, and that is the one on the skate park. I saw that a couple of hours ago, and it certainly was overflowing, and the consequence, there were a lot of cans around it. People had given up attempting to squeeze the next one in. So that whoever does that one, it's definitely not been done this week.
Okay, noted. As Mark says, there is a report it function on the Breckland website for full bins, so we can make a note of that. Sorry, Jenny,
No, that's fine. Actually, Mike pointed out about the skate park, which I was going to say, but none of the bins have actually been emptied on the estates either. But as being a long bank holiday and everybody coming out, I done a bin empty myself on Monday. I went and emptied the bin by Fairfields on the play park area because it was overflowing, and because it's an open bin anyway, everything flows out. So that was a little pick for me, and I changed the bin. But I'm not sure if that's our workforce that does the play park bins and the skate park, or if it is Breckland. I've got a feeling it's ours for some reason. But I mean, I'm quite happy to be put in my place and told no, it's not.
Yeah, unfortunately Roger's not here, but as far as I'm aware, the only bin that we as a town council empty is the new one that's just been installed near the cemetery on London Road, although, you know, there's a sort of unofficial arrangement with Breckland. I think all of the emptying is down to Breckland, but it would be worth double checking that for future reference. So I will make a note of that, because that's a good point.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that, Jenny. Jane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really pleased that you said about your sentiment about if the bin's full, take it home. I think probably from the two youngest members on this committee, we're probably the most old-fashioned in our response to say, you know, if the bin isn't able to be used, take your rubbish home. It's the sensible thing to do. I was delighted to see one of the works guys from the Serco team on behalf of Breckland on Button Island this morning at 8:15 emptying the bins. They have been beautifully done and are ready and waiting for any rubbish that may need to be put in there. But I would echo your comments earlier once again. If the bin's full, take it home. It's not difficult.
Lovely. Thank you for that, Joe. Okay, so I don't see anybody else indicating. Jenny, I assume your hand's up from your comment before, or was it a different point? No, good, thank you. Thank you for that, Mark. That's really encouraging. If we move on to Roger's report, he's not here, but does anybody have any comments or questions specifically on Roger's report? I mean, I think Dave's covered it in the chat where he says lots of good work done and thanks to the works team. I mean, they've done a brilliant job of the benches down by the town bridge. I haven't walked as far as the one at the Abbey Water Meadows, but the picture's there. I mean, it's looking good. I did have a query just to share about the plaque that was on that bench originally. I think the proposal was to put it back, but I will follow that up with Roger, because that was a memorial bench specifically. And the only other thing I'd draw your attention to, I think quite a few of you have probably walked down and seen it for yourself, but the work to the footbridge down by Nuns Bridges, I've walked along there. They've done a brilliant job. There you go. Thank you for whoever's controlling the screen. They've done a really good job with the bridge there. And I saw a note somewhere about the cost benefit of us doing that in-house. There it is. It's on screen. Look, it's almost like it's meant to be.
Almost like someone's listening.
Thanks, Mark. But yeah, they've done a fantastic job. And I saw Roger actually the day after he did that and sort of said, you know, thank you. It's really good to see, and being very well used, certainly the times I've walked past. Brenda, please.
Yeah, just to remind you, Mr. Chairman, when we spoke about that bench at Abbey, the name that was on there wasn't the name why the bench was put there. Roger or Pauline will know the name that was there. It was named after somebody that would, you know, years ago always picked up litter and something else. I won't mention what, but that's why that bench was named after him. Someone came along years later, took his name off and put some foreign name on there. So I think a foreign person died and they screwed their own plaque. So it should be. If the plaque was underneath, then you've got it, but don't put the other plaque back up.
Okay, I think Roger was on the case. I mean, he did speak to me about it, but I've made a note of that, Brenda, and if we're stuck, I'll come back to you and double check with you, because I think I know the name of who it's supposed to be. Okay. Cool. Any other comments or questions, please, on the sort of street scene bit of the report this month? No, lovely. Thank you very much. Similar theme with the next agenda item then, 913, purchase and refurbishment of benches.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I did have one more point. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
Some of our bins are still open bins. As Jenny was saying, the one at the Fairfield Play Park or Drake School, whatever it is, it's an open bin. I think in time we should go around and looking at these open bins. They're no good because, you know, people just pile it on top and top, and then the wind comes up and that's it. It's gone all over the place. So I'm wondering whether we can do a study and look into them open bins and get them changed. You know, I'm not telling you to do it right now. I'm just saying we should start phasing and get all these open bins shut off.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and that's kind of what we have been doing. It's a gradual process because obviously, as we all know, the bins which you see on screen are jolly expensive actually. So I don't think we could afford to do it all in one go, but it has been a gradual process. One on Abbey Water Meadows, which was an open one, actually turned out to be Breckland's. And I've discovered about 3 or 4 now of the ground level ones that are open tend to be Breckland's, but certainly where they are town council owned, and Roger's got an amazing sort of memory of which ones he's installed and therefore must be town council. So we gradually are doing that, and we have a stock design now for the bins, and the ones that you see on screen I think look super. But if anybody, you know, committee members do spot any of those bins, raise it, because the guys can always program it in for future, you know, as a gradual process. Jenny, please.
Yeah, thank you. It's just really following up what Brenda was saying. The bin that's outside the play park on Fairfields, I think it belongs to the play park because it's always painted in the same colours as the equipment and that. But it's just a little basket. I noticed Monday when I was over there doing the litter pick and doing the bin, a lot of the stuff was wet wipes where parents are wiping little people's hands when they come out of the play park, which is very good. But obviously they're blown out because normally that's quite a tidy area. But say that is just a basket there. It's not what I call a bin. It's more what you put in your garden sort of thing. But I will report that one for maybe put in for a new bin on that one for the next time, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could, Jenny. That's really useful. We're in a new year now, so we've got a refreshed street furniture budget. So given how much our play areas are used, we want to make sure the bins there are fit for purpose. So, Jane, please, next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Daft question of the afternoon. What happened with the audit that we were supposed to be doing on bins? Because I was of the understanding that we were going to pull all of that together, identify what are ours, what aren't ours, and then as it will come as no surprise to anybody with my finance hat on, then sort of scheduling a forward plan over the next 3 to 5 years of this bin renewal refresh programme. Where are we at with that bin audit, please?
Yep. My original intention for the agenda today was to have a bit of a priority discussion. Brenda made the point last month about where do our agenda items sit with our priorities. So I thought it was a good time to have a look at the priorities again and just sort of, you know, tick a few off because that audit is very much part of it. And then, as you'll see, there's been a whole number of things creep onto the agenda, so I daren't add too many more. But I'd like to think hopefully in May, we can have that discussion about the audit wrapped up with the priorities, seeing as we're in the start of a new financial year, and it gives us a chance to sort of look ahead to the year ahead. So it's definitely still on the radar. I've certainly been doing the audit on Burrell. I've built out quite a photographic log now, so we might get a reminder sent round to people and build it into our priority setting. Okay, Mark, please. So refurbishment of benches, next one.
Yeah, sure. So there's a couple of possibilities basically that we were asked to look at. So there are the two wooden benches across the big ring bridge from the Nuns Bridges car park. One of them is in a pretty sorry state and definitely to replace. The other one, I mean, it's a sort of value judgment really, I suppose. I mean, it could certainly be there's a few little bits that could be filled in and wood stained or repainted, and it will last you another couple of years, I should imagine, at least, if you wish. Alternatively, there is, as I said, the replacement possibilities are listed there, which I think you've all seen. Now, as that's so much for the picnic benches, the other possibilities are for the metal benches, and again there is the option of buying the new benches there, or we do actually have in the cemetery yard on the top right of your screen there are some ready-made bench ends that used to go with wooden ones, but we've got metal slats that we could fit in between those, so we could make from existing stocks, if you like, some more black entirely metal benches. So I suppose those are I suppose the sort of two decisions there. Do you want to repair or refurbish the second mentioned Nun Bridges? If you want to replace both of them or just the one, are you happy with the type of picnic table bench suggested? And are we going for brand new benches or using the existing kit form benches that we have there? At the moment, as I understand it, we are we're not making a decision on sort of necessarily on numbers of benches to buy. That depends on the budgetary situation, which we're looking at next month, I believe. But this is a sort of in principle decision, isn't it? Basically on whether to, as I said, refurbish or replace that bench, and which do you prefer for the options there for the metal benches?
Lovely, thank you. I always appreciate us having options. I appreciate you looking into that for us. I think I saw Mike waving at me physically first.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if you can hear me because I can't. I've lost the screen, unfortunately. I wanted to come back on the two benches that Mark mentioned quite rightly. One of them is way past its sell-by date, as Mark said, and really, the sooner it's removed, the better. Because it's really quite, well, dangerous is putting it strongly, but it needs to go. The other one, I'd have thought, really, you know, this is just something to get on with. If Roger feels he can, for example, I'm not saying Roger, but if for example, Roger felt he could repair it and make it worthwhile, that's fine. I just wanted to remark, however, in addition to that, I do think that that particular area is popular with people who do want to sit and have a bench, have a table as well as a bench. So a picnic table, because people park in the car park and then they say, I don't want to throw food all over the car, I'll throw it all over the bench instead. And that's a good idea. It's a nice place to get out of your car and sit there. So I hope they can be replaced with a like for like. Whether it's new or refurbished is, I would say, up to the staff to decide which is worthwhile. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And I think I saw Jenny next, please.
Thank you. I'm one for refurbishing myself. If it can be done, I'd like to see it done cost-wise, as long as it's cost-wise, because sometimes it costs more to refurbish than it's just fine new on some things. But if it can be refurbished, it would be lovely. As for the benches, I think using what we've got, the ends of the bench would be brilliant. Yeah, I reckon that'd be brilliant. So yeah, refurbish instead of replace.
Lovely. Thank you, Jenny. Jane, next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To go with the mantra that we all seem to be adopting at the moment, reduce, reuse, recycle. I fully support utilising those cast iron ends. I mean, to replace them if we were to buy them new would be a phenomenal expense. And I'd suggest they're probably almost bomb-proof. And Roger has demonstrated his fantastic carpentry skills on more than one occasion. So I think it would be wonderful to get him to utilise those. And they keep perfectly well and actually enhance our historical settings and keep within our designs that we wish to see. In terms of the picnic table, at the risk of sounding like Trigger, I use the same brush that I have used for 20 years. I've only replaced the head 5 times and the handle 7, but it's the same brush all the same. I think we should be repairing where possible, please.
Lovely, thank you, Jane. And I think as that photo shows of the ends of the benches, we probably couldn't buy ones as nice as that, actually, to be honest with you. They look, you know, much, you know, quite grand, really, and really nice. I saw something. Stuart, please.
Thank you, Chair. As Mike said, I think it's popular with people having picnics, so let's try and keep some picnic provision down there and picnic tables. I think you've got to let Roger take a view on the one that needs repairing. I'm sure he's got enough knowledge and expertise to say, well, it's beyond repair or it's definitely worth giving a go. So I'd really put him to Mark and Roger to make that decision whether it is worth repair. The ends, yes, let's use them, but I think there are other places in the town that you and I, Terry, have identified where they could be put if we stick into picnic tables down at the Nuns Bridges site. So let's get working on providing some new benches from old and looking where we can put them.
Yeah, just to clarify on that, I think we've got 6 bench ends, so you know, 3 benches worth at least in sort of the kit form ones, if you like. And also just to clarify on this one, certainly in my view, I think that's repairable with just you know, tin of paint basically, and a little bit of wood filler rather than having to get contractors in. So yeah, it's definitely the cheaper option to refurbish that one. Oh, we lost Terry. Can you hear me, Chair? Have we lost our chair?
I can't see him on the screen.
Oh,
Oh, he's not on the screen.
oh, we are rudderless, unfortunately.
He's back.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Who's the deputy? Is what we want.
Hello, sorry, I'm back.
Yeah, got you.
My whole computer just restarted. That's so annoying. So I have no idea what Stuart said, but I'm sure it was great.
Broadly in line with other comments, I think, in terms of reusing the bench ends and making a judgment on the other one.
Lovely, thank you. I don't see anybody else indicating. So as I understand it, the consensus is to make use of the ends of the benches, which I think we would all be in agreement with, which is great. And to refurbish the picnic table that's got a bit of use left in it for a while, which also makes sense. The one that is in a particularly poor state, the option that was there to buy a new metal one, ordinarily I would be keen to get on and order that. And then I noticed the £203 one-off delivery charge. Now, I don't know the supplier, Mark, but normally street furniture and bins, we tend to go with the same company. Is that right?
Yeah, just to clarify, the picnic bench for 4 people with the wheelchair provision, those are the recycled plastic ones, in black, and those are the photos you're looking at there. The steel frame chapel tower, it's unfortunate where the page end is, I think, but the steel frame chapel tower metal bench seat is the one below. That refers to the picture on your left now, the bench seat rather than the table.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
So if you're looking at the cost of the picnic tables, that they are £469 each. I would have to check on the delivery charges for those, but I think that's an all-in cost. So I'd have to just clarify. As I say, I was on the understanding we weren't going to sort of make a decision on numbers at the moment, but I can check for you if it makes a difference whether we order 1 or 2 at the same time, if you like.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean,
I think with that we're only getting 1 anyway, aren't we? After
exactly. Well, I was more thinking about if we were about to put in a street furniture order for bins, we might as well order the 1 bench at the same time if we delay the bench order to coincide with the bin order. Otherwise, we'll incur 2 lots of delivery charges. I'm happy to wait for the bench, until we're ready to order some new bins. But if it's all inclusive costs, then that's not as much of a concern.
Yeah, I can clarify that just to make sure whether it's worth waiting for any other orders we might do.
That'll be good. The other thing I'd just point out is, as I say, I went to have a look. When we order this, before we order, check the dimensions, because both of those benches are on a concrete sort of plinth.
Yeah.
And we'll have to make sure they fit on the existing plinth, because if we have to put concrete down to extend it to fit it on, then it's a much more complicated job. We want, like for like in terms of size, really, to make it relatively easy.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Thank you. Stuart first, please.
Sorry, Chair. I might go off a bit tangent here. Mark, the Dolphin side of Wooden Hill is the remains of an old bench there, which are concrete uprights. The concrete uprights are there, but the wooden slats are all gone.
Yeah.
I just wondered, whether we can get rid of that, because it's probably a health and safety thing that you crack your skull or your knees on the old piece of concrete there. Yeah. But I know in the past we've had problems about doing anything in terms of installing stuff within the park, whether because that's an existing use site, whether that may be a location you could do a replacement with one of your new benches that you're going to refurbish.
I think if we were going to do any kind of excavation, that would require an archaeologist watching it, which basically doubles the cost pretty much. Whether we could take out the existing concrete and fill a new plinth in the same hole, I wouldn't like to say off the top of my head.
No, maybe you can have a look at it for us.
Potentially feasible, I suppose. Might get away with it. The other possibility is, I was thinking about this when it comes to tree planting, is that the Schedule H monument area. The reason we were able to do the bike racks is the Schedule H monument area doesn't include absolutely all the park. So there may be scope for putting in, it may be possible to put benches in at the sort of far end of the park, away from where the actual Castle Mound and ramparts are, which I understand is not really what you're asking for there, but that's just something potentially to bear in mind. I would say that the people in the house where the bike racks are would be, I think, I'm not pleased with a bench going in there as well, and they don't want people to be sort of gathering right next to their house, which I can understand. So that's another factor to consider. Yes, I can certainly look into the possibilities of putting another bench somewhere in Castle Park if that's you know, if the committee wants looking for new sites for benches in Castle Park. You're quite right. It is somewhat problematic, but we might get away with existing ones. There's another concrete pad actually near the sort of nearer Castle Street, isn't there? But again, has been sort of broken and left, which again might give us another possibility. Yeah, all I can say is I'll sort of tentatively investigate that, see if we can get away with it. But as I say, it's a long, slow, and quite expensive process if we have to dig any kind of hole.
Well, we'll do the easy ones first.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Stuart. Jane, please, you want to come back with a comment? Or is that
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Keeping in mind what you just said about making it easy and the earlier comments about how long our agenda is today, this item and the next agenda item, both levels of expenditure have been budgeted for, appear within budget lines, and on the whole are within the delegated scheme for officer decisions within the financial regs. Is there a reason why we're using up oxygen on this, please?
I think mainly because it's a question about design. So the money's not really so much the issue. But having spoken to the staff, we wanted to be clear on are you happy with the design of the benches and the design of the pick tables, really? So we didn't want to go ahead and just put something in and then there'd be an issue with the design. So, point taken, and we shall move on. Thanks, Mark. There's plenty for you and Roger to chew over with benches there and make some progress. So thank you for that. Yeah. We shall move on to water supply for Barnham Common. Thank you for sending the narrative round with the notes, which certainly is really useful. Is there anything you want to add to what's already been circulated?
Not really, I suppose, and bear in mind Councillor Jones's point there, it's really it's long, I suppose, a policy decision on whether you're happy with that in principle. It would certainly be operationally a really, really good thing to do to stop wasting a lot of staff time really on sort of filling up a water container on the back of a truck and then driving down to Barnham Cross Common and filling up a Bowser. And it would be so much better, I think, to have a water supply in situ. And as I said, option 3 there, it is definitely within the delegated powers or the costs that can be signed off by the town clerk. So yeah, it's in principle. Are the members happy with that? And if so, we will go ahead and do it.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any comments or questions, please? I could see Brenda, please.
Yes, I think we have to go back to our environmental policy as well. Because you think during the summer months when it's hot and they have to keep going down there in their vans with buckets of water. So I think that that goes to our environmental policy as well.
Thank you. Anybody else, please? Support option 3. Thank you. Is that a proposal, Jane? Jane's nodding. I don't see anybody else indicating. So would somebody like to second option 3, please?
I'll second it. Dennis Crawford.
Thank you very much, Dennis. How much are we talking here? Yeah, if you could indicate in the chat, please, whether you support or don't support option 3, please.
Whilst that's being done, Chair, is this going to be resolved, please?
Yes, because as Mark very helpfully indicates in the report, it's within the budget that we've got.
Yep.
So in my view,
Thank you. Thanks very much.
I think that's nearly everybody. Are you happy with that one, Mark?
Yeah, that's great. I assume that was in support.
Yeah, I don't see anybody else not in support. So that's pretty
Okay.
much unanimous.
As I said, that's great. As I said, it will save the guys a lot of time and you say driving up and down. And yeah, I think that's a great result for the future.
Yeah. Moving on to the academy fence. It's like Groundhog Day. Again, very grateful for the narrative that's in the report that was circulated. Hopefully that answers some of the queries that committee members have raised in the past. The decision that we need is to determine whether or not we as a town council would like to contribute costs to the new fence. Does anybody have any comments or suggestions on that, please? I can see a hand from Mike.
Thank you very much. I'm a bit puzzled by this. I'm probably, I shouldn't be, given my past history. I've looked at it twice. I went down a second time this morning. I still can't understand it. The description in one of the answers from the academy is it's our safeguarding boundary. Well, as far as I can see, it's a boundary of a car park, not the school, which is bounded by Joe Bunce Lane, and there is a boundary fence down there. The kind of fence that's there at present invites what's happened. If you park at the bottom of the car park, i.e. next to the skate park, it's 200 paces up to the exit to the car park and then 200 back again. So 400 paces to cover a distance of about 5 yards is quite a lot. And I'm not surprised, really, that some people have taken the decision that they'd bust the fence. It's wrong, it's undesirable, it's antisocial, but you can see the point they're making. I'm just surprised that the academy chooses to regard the car park as a safeguarding fence. If it is a safeguarding fence, it needs to be a lot stronger than the existing fence. Otherwise, the same problem will just happen again and again. So I wouldn't be ready myself at this stage to support the idea that we should contribute to it. Although, of course, if they wanted to apply for a grant, that'd be one thing, quite a different thing. I just wonder whether we've really got to the bottom of what it is they want to do to justify us taking part. It's they who want a fence, not us. It's they who would benefit from a fence, not us. Lots of neighbours have fences that one person pays for or not the other. As of now, I would be saying it's your fence. Good luck to you.
Thank you for that, Mike. Hands up from Jane, followed by Jenny, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I fully agree with Councillor Brindle. It's not our fence. I would be against making any contribution towards it. Were this committee minded to make that contribution towards it, because I don't want to preempt any decision that is made, I would suggest that you also think where that money is going to come from, because this has not been budgeted for. So you would need to identify monies that you'd be looking to spend, but I'm against this proposal.
Thank you, Jane. If it's approved, we do have a suggestion for what budget it would come from, but that might not be needed if that's the will of the committee, but we shall find out shortly. Jenny, next, please.
Thank you. I'm in agreement with what Mike's just said, and also on that one where it says adults and children both are breaking the fence, climbing from our car park. Well, if it's their car park, why isn't it shut off in the evenings or weekends to protect their car park? Because if they're allowing people to go in and use their car park, they're going to expect some kind of damage. But I don't support this at all. I don't agree with it at all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any more hands up, so could I ask somebody please to make a proposal for the committee to consider, probably something along the lines of we don't want to make a contribution. Is somebody happy to make that proposal, please?
Terry, I put something in the chat.
Okay.
Suggesting that we decline to make a contribution.
Cool. Are you happy, Dave, if I take that as a proposal from you?
I'm happy for that to be a proposal, yeah.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that, please?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Lovely. And if you could indicate in the chat, please, if you're happy with Dave's proposal there, that's seconded by Jenny.
Again, Chair, this is going to be a recommendation to refuse a contribution. Yep.
I think it would be a resolve to...
Resolved. Thank you. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Carla's abstaining, but what we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Thank you very much. I think that's carried there. That will be declining and make a contribution. Moving on to 916, Heritage Roundels. Stuart, do you want to introduce this one just to save Mark a bit of talking time, bless him?
Okay, this was handed over to Roger to get quotes. Looking at it, we've got quotes, and then the question arose about bronze or resin ones. So what we've got, company A's bronze, approximately £130 plus VAT. And then I think we've got the resin, approximately £45 plus VAT. We're looking at replacing the 3 on the lecterns, but also getting an indication what the cost would be to replace those in the set in the ground, which have been lost over the years. And I suggested we probably need about 20 to allow for spares in that respect. I did speak to the town clerk on this matter. One of the things she felt was that if we went for bronze, they would be likely to be seeking to be removed because of the precious metal. However, the resin ones can be made to look like bronze, though whether that would take those uninitiated people stopping them taking it away is another matter. But if we did go for bronze, I would suggest we put change the design a little and have brass bolts put through, as well as the epoxy glue that had been used in the past. So I think it's a question would go resin or bronze. I think that the budget is such that we should be able to deliver this and enhance those lecterns, which are sadly lacking a bit of TLC.
Thank you. And do you have a preference, Stuart? Is resin good enough in your opinion?
I haven't seen quality control on it, so I'm not ducking the issue. My gut feel would say let's go like for like with bronze on the 3 that we're looking at and put resin in the floor.
Okay. I'll take a couple of other contributions and I'll come back with my view. Dennis, I saw your hand first, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my question was, are the resin ones going to be strong enough and everything? Because unfortunately we have a few vandals around, like everybody does, and I was just concerned about the durability of them. But I don't know if we can get an answer to that. So.
Yeah, good point. We'll see if we can come on to that. Brenda, please.
Yeah, 2 points really. One is the budget, obviously what have we got to spend, and 2 is what's the durability on each one. Because if we're going to do something, let's do it properly and make sure it lasts a good few years, rather than something that's going to sort of like wash away. And bronze, I love bronze, but what's it going to look like in the future? Will it go all nasty and horrible, or will it last? That's my main concerns is, the durability of them and what they're going to look like after a few years, until they last a long time.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure we'll get an answer to that, but it's a good question to raise. Jane, please, next.
Thank you, Chairman. Being a bear of very little brains, I do like to have things broken down separately. So realistically, the suggestion at this point in time is the roundels for the boards, of which we require 3. The initial proposal would be that we go bronze on those, with the additional voltage that Councillor Wright has suggested. And in terms of the floor roundels, the jury's still out till we have definitive answers in terms of resilience, wearability, that kind of thing. Am I correct in that understanding, please?
I think the suggestion was all of one sort, you know, or either all bronze or all resin. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stuart. But just following on from Jane's point there, personally, I think if we were to do it, bronze for the lectern ones, because they are clearly the most visible, they're lifted off the ground on the lecterns. I don't think it matters too much which ones are in the ground, because it should be flush with the ground and therefore, you know, less of an issue, less of a sort of, you know, quality point of view. But we don't know how durable they're going to be. So I wonder if we should, the minimum order there on the screen you'll see is 6 of the resin ones. I wonder if we should go ahead and order 6 of them and see how we get on. If that could be a compromise. How do you feel about that, Stuart?
No, I'm really happy with that. Just following on from Brenda's comment about how durable the bronze ones are. Bearing in mind the original ones were bronze and they stood the test of time. It's only that somebody stole them rather than them weathering in any way. So I'm happy to go with the bronze for the lecterns, and let's get a minimum order in for the resin ones, get those in place and see how they wear.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. The most relevant budget, unless Mark or Alan corrects me, is probably our street furniture budget, because these are items of street furniture. So I'm very conscious that we don't want to eat into that too much with, you know, bronze plaques made of bronze ones for all of them, because ultimately we'll be eating too much into our street furniture budget, as we discussed earlier. We might want to make use of that. Well, we will want to make use of that. So if we order the bronze ones for the lecterns and then the resin ones for the floor, are committee members happy with that? Brenda, please.
Sorry, I didn't have my hand up. I forgot to take it down from last time.
Okay, no worries.
But I'm happy with that. 3 bronze, 4 of the other stuff. Resin.
I think it will be 3 bronze. What's the total number, Stuart, you'd want of the resin ones for the floor?
I think we identified about 15 gaps. We suggested about 20 for replacement, so we don't have to keep to and froing. But if we're going for 6 now, let's get that done.
Yeah, rather than ordering 20 and all 20 of them not being very good, if we order 6, if that's the minimum order, and make sure we're happy, and then there's still sufficient number to order for a second batch. Okay, required setup costs. Okay. We'll get 4 then. We can have a spare. I'm just trying to work that into a proposal. So we are having 4 bronze, 6 resin. I'm happy to propose it if somebody would like to second that, please.
I'll second that, Mike Brindle.
Thank you, Mike. And if you could indicate in the chat that you're in support of that, that'd be very useful. And somebody who's better than maths than I can work out the total cost of that.
Well, I don't think it's a financial decision required. It's within the delegated cost anyway. So it's a more, as long as you're in principle, got a decision. Bronze for lecterns and other ones for the ground, we can go with that.
Lovely. Thank you for that, Mark. Lastly, Stuart, on this item, we were separately looking at costs for the repainting aspect of the lecterns. Have we progressed that at all?
again, Roger was dealing with that and coming up with a price both from a contractor, but also doing it in-house, because I did talk to him about the various types of paint and suggested probably a standard green hammerite, something that would be really weatherproof, would probably be able to be done in-house as cheap. So he was going to come back with a price for that. Unfortunately, I've not spoken to him since.
That's fine. I just wanted to see if we knew where we're at, but we can pick that up on a future meeting. Thank you very much. I think people have indicated in the chat that they are happy with that, so that deals with that one. Be good to make progress on that. 917 War Memorial Edition. It says me to lead, but I don't have anything to add than the text that's already been circulated. I suppose really it's just whether or not anybody has any questions or comments, and whether the committee are happy to support that. I think generally we are supportive of these sort of things, so let's do it. We like that attitude. Thanks, Jane. Dave says agreed. I don't see anybody asking any questions, so yeah, brilliant. I'm going to take it that we're all happy with that one. It's relatively simple.
Great.
Brilliant. Mark, does that give you what you need on that one?
Yep. And as long as we got an okay, it can be gone ahead, I believe.
Mr. Chairman, I put my hands up, but where does the money come? Is that street furniture again?
I think so, yeah. I was looking at this the other day, and I think before, when we, the recent expense that we did within the last year, I think that was taken from street furniture, but I will double check. We don't have a sort of specific war memorial budget within ALP, so...
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
You can fight away if you
Chair,
like.
could I just ask you, or perhaps Mark, that the only decision here it says to agree the amendment, which we've done.
Yeah.
Do you want to agree to go ahead?
Again, you don't need a
to.
financial sort of decision
Okay.
for this, because
Thank
it's
you.
well within the delegated powers. So
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Purely a decision on principle again. So
yeah.
Thank you.
I will finish what I started, shall I?
Yeah, sorry, I was interrupted.
All right. No, I think because the way that we're going on with all the street furniture and everything sort of being lumped into the street furniture, I think you need to look at the budget and set up a working party and put a plan in place so that you know what you're doing throughout the year. It's just a suggestion. It's just that we sit here and we agree things and we think, oh, do you know what? That's coming out of the budget, and that's coming out of the budget. So everything we want to do is going to come out of the budget. We're better off having a working plan for the next year, by a small group of people. It's only a suggestion, It's up to you. I don't want to be on it. I'm just saying I think it's better if just a few people are tackling all all the street furniture subject.
Well, I think that comes back to Jane's point earlier, when we're setting the priorities, and obviously the priorities have to relate to our budget. So I think when we have that discussion, Brenda, we also need to bear in mind it's not just street furniture, it's also war memorials and, potentially existing bits of street furniture, i.e. the trail lecterns, but we'll do that when we get to the priority setting aspect. But I think there'll be a lot of things ticked off our priorities when we get there. So that gives us an opportunity to think about what we want to do moving forward. Jane, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, music to my ears to hear corporate priorities and plans having budgets attached to them. Thank you very much. Always like to see that little bit on the spreadsheet. But in terms of war memorials, obviously under, I believe it's the Local Government Act, we are responsible for it, even if we don't own it. So it's an integral part of our deemed street furniture aspect that we need to take responsibility for and need to be mindful of. After all, we do insure them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that one's resolved. Moving on to the next item, 918 Fish Pass. Thank you to those members that were able to attend the briefing recently by Ellis Selway from the Environment Agency. I certainly found it very interesting and informative. This has been on the agenda for a while now, but sort of progressed to the stage we're at now. And we've got a couple of decisions to make. Mark, did you want to say anything by way of introduction for this one?
Well, I hope everyone has had a chance, even if they didn't hear us speak, to have a look at his report. And we've got a boiled down version of it basically there in terms of what you need to make the decisions. Excuse me. But basically, Ellis has been able to get hold of, almost all of the money for this project, but it does require a £10,000 commitment from Thetford Town Council. So that would be from, well, the current year's budgets as it now is. So yeah, so it's those are the two key decisions as are laid out there, is basically whether the town council is prepared to put in that £10,000 initially and then take ownership of and responsibility for the maintenance of this asset. Now, this was, saying basically there should be very little maintenance, inspection or costs involved in the sort of long-term looking after this asset. It's a pretty robust and resilient thing, pretty heavy duty materials. We would need to check sort of every now and then that there was no sort of obstructions, bits of logs and things getting stuck in it, but that's something we can do, staff can do as part of our regular sort of checks around the sites anyway. So yeah, as I said, it is those two sort of key decisions really. I think everyone's very aware of what the fish pass would be, what the the benefits of it would be in the long term, and Ellis also set out about the benefits, in terms of the biological or biodiversity benefits for the fish. So yeah, it's just a question of whether the town council does want to commit that funds and then sort of take on the asset in the long term.
Thank you, Mark. I think it's really encouraging that the Environment Agency have confirmed £80,000 for this infrastructure in Thetford. I think that's really encouraging. So I'm really pleased that they've been able to do that. What's the other point I was going to make? And just on the ownership, I think you've just covered it in what you've just said. I was concerned about the maintenance because obviously we don't have experience of owning or managing fish passes. But in terms of ongoing maintenance, I was quite reassured by the briefing that he gave that these structures are fairly robust, and it's more of a visual audit, as you say, to make sure there's no sort of debris in the way and that sort of thing. So that was really reassuring for me. The third point I would make is that at the moment it's built into the proposal so that when the contractors are on site constructing the fish pass, they could look at improving the pathway. Those of you that have been down there will know that the pathway to the side of what I call the sort of water buffalo paddock, on that side of the river opposite Ford Place, is in a pretty poor state. Actually, it's quite difficult to walk along there. So Ellis is happy to build into the specification for a proper pathway, matching the pathway on the other side at the back of Arlington Way, connecting up the whole of the river network there, and that can be built in at no more cost to the town council. So I think that's really encouraging. I can see hands up from Jane, then Stuart, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It will come as no surprise to anybody that my first question is, which piggy bank are we robbing for this money? Because the 2021-22 budget did not have a £10,000 allocation to support the fish pass. So my first question is, where are we proposing to take the money from? My second question is as per financial regulations on the acquiring of any asset, purchasing or otherwise, we are required to have a full business plan to support it. Now, hearing the conversation so far, my understanding is at the moment ongoing maintenance, and having looked at the specification, it's close to becoming a blockhouse on the shores of Thetford, and we know how resilient concrete actually is. In terms of inspection, would my presumption, because there is no business plan supporting this at the moment, is my presumption of an annual visual inspection and a report back to us an appropriate assumption? Do we have anything to support that so we don't get caught out going forward? So my guesstimate therefore would be probably about a £500 a year cost, worst case scenario, you know, a half-day inspection, a half-day report writing and submitting it to us would be a guesstimate for that. Have we got anything to support that? Have we got anything that makes sure that we're not going to be bitten on the proverbial, you know, a year or two down the line when costs escalate? Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. I've made a note of those. I'll bring Stuart in and then I'll probably ask Alan to comment on the cost side of stuff, seeing as he's here and he can answer better than I can. But Stuart first, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think just going back, a while back, we did make the decision to look to support this by £10,000 once it was on the horizon. It's something that, you know, I wish the Environment Agency were paying the whole lot, but I think we were told that we would have to make a contribution. It was on our land, and it would be our management of that area that we would benefit from it. I understand Jane's concerns in terms of business case and getting our I's dotted and T's crossed for auditors and getting all that done. So yes, we do have to frame it in the right way. But pragmatically, we've got a problem area there, which we've got short-term solution in place, which thankfully is working to some extent, allowing water to flow through the coffee mill. But without further maintenance on that short-term solution, we will end up having further maintenance costs on the short-term solution and further erosion further down the channel, making it even worse situation. So I think, you know, we've got a little choice other than to go with this. It's obviously I wish I had a magic wand to finance these things, but there is a case that we do need to make this decision and get it happening. I take Terry's point that we could have an enhancement to the path there, and that's really welcome to hear, because you know, looking at improving the riverside is something that we're all very keen on doing, and if this is an opportunity to lever in even more asset for our money, I think it's well worthwhile. But yes, let's somehow find somewhere to get this money from, but take on board Jane's points about getting all the paperwork in place. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Stuart. Alan, did you want to come in there? I think just for the committee's benefit, Stuart's right that we did make a decision sort of in principle to support it some time ago. I think it was probably 18 months ago. But what we didn't do was indicate where that money would come from. So I did make some inquiries with Alan as to which pot may be available. So I wonder, Alan, if you could sort of update us on your thoughts on that.
Thank you, Chair. I think just to confirm what happened, I certainly sat in a meeting, I think it was at the end of October, as part of their handover process, and there was an amount of £10,000 spoken about the fish pass. It got written into a corporate document, but unfortunately it didn't get written into a kind of financial plan supporting that. So there has been a little bit of a kind of communication stroke carry through issue. But just going forward, the chairman did approach me. I think we've got two basic options. There are some reserves, and in terms of the reserve policy, this committee could make a decision to fund this out of those reserves. There's a general purpose reserve. There's also a specific reserve for the waterways, but that only has £4,000 in it. So that could also be something for this committee to consider. The third option is hopefully, with all the kind of encouragement around COVID, our budgets will slowly start growing, and our percentage of non-precept to precept income, that gap will start increasing as well. So when we do the future budget revisions, I think there's an opportunity there. Obviously, that has a little bit of a higher risk because there's a lot more uncertainty. Just to the last point that I do want to make is I think we do need to have a maintenance plan, not for audit purposes or for anything else, but I think for decision-making purposes, because we do need to know what these costs are going to be. And one of the dangers we have as a council, and that's just me coming in relatively recently, is we take on a lot of assets, but we don't actually take on the capacity to service them and to ensure that we actually can maintain them. And one of the things, one of our priorities from a senior management team perspective, is that we have to start having asset management plans and have them in place. So I'd like us, as my recommendation to the committee would be, please ensure that we use the information for decision making, not just to complete a paper trail, because then there's a risk that we will could possibly make decisions which are not right for the council and sustainable in the longer term. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. That's really useful. I think if we were to make a decision today as a committee to support this, it would probably be really useful for yourself and Mark to have a chat with Ellis. I would imagine that these are the sorts of questions that other parish and town councils have asked when the Environment Agency have asked them to take on similar structures. I mean, I've noticed in the press that these fish passes are popping up in a number of places. And so I think we should try to learn from elsewhere about running costs and inspection costs. And I think following Jane's point, what we're really saying is we don't want to be, well, we want to put aside the 10 grand for the fish pass, but we need to be thinking now about the running costs. So I wonder if actually we should be looking to set aside £12,000, 10 for the actual contribution, but a minimum of £2,000 for the next few years worth of running costs. So we're sort of recognising the true cost, if you like, certainly in the short term. The one that you emailed me about and you mentioned, which sounded relevant, was this sort of waterways reserve, but I didn't really know anything about that. But I appreciate there's only £4,000 there, but do you think that's possible to use that for this particular project?
So just checking that I'm not on mute. I think in terms of the reserve policy, it's a specific project. It was initially looked at as part of the BFER. I think that was established even before I arrived here. I would see possibly there not being an issue, but I would just need some confirmation from the town clerk who was around at that stage to do that. But it was set up for the specific purpose of waterways. Yeah. We just added BFER when we did the reserve policy.
Okay, thank you. That's useful. I mean, that sounded like the most relevant. I mean, it says waterways reserve. The other 2 points I was going to make is at some point, we will be looking at what we hope will be our underspent for the most recent financial year. We should be having that conversation at the May meeting. We don't know yet what the level of underspend will be, so we can't sort of bank on that, as it were, but I'm certainly hopeful there will be an underspend. So we could direct some of that towards the fish pass if need be. And correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, because it got sort of very confusing, the budget setting process for this current financial year. But I think in our sort of general revenue budget, we did set aside in the end the £10,000 for the river.
We did.
We did. So if need be, if we don't have an underspend and we can't use the waterways money, potentially there is a sort of river pot which isn't at the moment attributed to anything else.
Good.
Okay, good, that's useful. So we've got a couple of options there, which I think is always useful. Jane, please. What have I said that about saying?
You haven't upset me. You don't upset me. It was my understanding, and forgive me if I'm wrong, that 10,000 that we'd set aside for river was to do with the parish partnership bid for the pathway. Because if I remember rightly, the estimated cost was circa 18,000, which would put our contribution at about 9, but it also allows for a contingency. So I'm just mindful that I don't want us double dipping and would like to deliver everything that we've said we'd like to do, rather than robbing Peter to pay Paul and then realising that we haven't done it. I'm just looking up the reserving policy as well to support Alan.
Yeah. I don't think that's correct, Jane, actually. I think the parish partnership money was from the general reserve rather than the river fund, but I am aware of that. Stuart, please. You're on mute.
Oh no, coming through. Yeah, I can confirm. I think that was the case, Chair. We'd had this conversation about the parish partnership, and we didn't have any funding allocated for it. So that was part of the contentious debate that we had regarding the parish partnership, and we made the decision. Well, it may never happen because it may get turned down, and if it does go forward, then we'll have to look for where it's going to be. So I think this River 10 was separate to the parish partnership.
Yep. Jane, do you want to come back on that one?
So if we accept that we have £10,000 budgeted within our budgets this year for the river, and this is £10,000, can I respectfully suggest that we use that? We don't need to use reserves. Job done.
Yeah, I think for me, that's the simplest way of doing it, to be honest with you. But if we have a specific waterways reserve, I personally would like us to explore whether we can use that as a first point, followed by the fact that we have this sort of 10k contingency. Originally, and as somebody that pushed for the 10k for the river quite hard, that's particularly in my mind for things like street furniture improvements along the river corridor and that sort of thing. So I wouldn't want to swallow it all up by the fish pass, but 10 grand of our money unlocking 80k of Environment Agency money is a jolly good investment in my book. So, you know, there's got to be a priority. But I think there is a number of options. So I wonder if Alan and Mark, if you were happy for us to agree in principle for the two decisions that are required, subject to the both of you identifying the most appropriate funding source from the council. Would you be happy with that sort of wording?
I'm happy with that, Chair.
Jane's not happy.
I would respectfully suggest that if we are going to utilise reserves, that is and that has not been budgeted, that is a decision for full council. It can only be a recommendation from this committee. I don't think that it's appropriate to ask officers to find the money when we make a decision. It's a bit like me going to Tesco's, doing £100 worth of shopping and go, somebody else will pay, that bloke behind me, I'm just going now. It is our responsibility, and unless we can identify the funding for this project, I cannot support the project.
Yeah, that's fine. My suggestion would be that regardless of whatever decision we make as a committee, it should be a recommendation to full council. We're essentially committing the council to take on a £90,000 structure, and although we are a big committee, personally, I think that should be a decision of full council, not just of the amenities committee. So this wouldn't be a resolved, it would be a recommendation to full council. I don't know if that resolves some of your concerns, Jane, but certainly as a matter of principle, I don't want us to make a decision to bind the council for forevermore.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, as a matter of financial regulations, it would have to go to full council regardless of principle.
Well, I'm so glad you agree with me. Let me get this right. So we are being asked to determine whether to commit £10,000 from Thetford Town Council to support this project, and whether Thetford Town Council is prepared to take ownership of and responsibility for the asset. They're the two decisions, and then linked to that is obviously where the £10,000 will come from. Alan's indicated that he's happy with wording along the lines of we will identify the most appropriate location for the budget, and members have heard that there's a number of options for that. I was going to say I don't see anybody else indicated. I've just seen a couple of hands, so sorry if I get this in the wrong order, but Carla, I can see your hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to pass a comment. We did sort of in principle compromise to participate those £10,000 back a while back, actually, and if we continue to claim that the rivers are our biggest asset, and we come to the decision, we step back on financial issues, it's like to one step forward and two steps back. We're not getting really anywhere. We ought to be participating with this money and get this job done. I did abstain when it came on the previous. My point is, I abstained on previous points with participating with Fancy at the Academy. I didn't necessarily agree that we shouldn't contribute, but I am fully aware, as Councillor James says, that money only stretches so far and our budget has limits. So we have to prioritize as a council. I think the importance of the fish pass surpasses the other points on the agenda, even because we've been talking about it for 2 years, maybe longer, and we are making a contribution. We're not covering the full of the cost. It is a very expensively costly project. So for us to contribute £10,000, but to get it done is imperative. I do understand that we need to source those funds and look into our reserves and see where we can get that budget from. And this is clearly something that needs to be addressed. But then it's for the full council to decide. And I agree that it should go to full council. That's just my opinion. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that contribution, Carla. Brenda, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, but both Jane and yourself stole my thunder. Because it was an asset, I just was going to say, even if it only cost a penny, it's still a town council decision because it would be a long-term maintenance. So it's not something that we can decide. We can only say, you know, look into it, send the proper paperwork through to town council. I won't actually vote on this until I've got the whole document to see what I'm signing up to. So I'm not going to vote on this today, just to say. But yeah, both of you and Jane have both said what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that covers everybody that wants to contribute. So to make a decision, I would like to propose that we recommend to full council that Thetford Town Council agrees to contribute £10,000 to support this budget, support the project, sorry. And we are content to take ownership of and responsibility for this asset. Would somebody like to second that proposal, please?
I will second it.
Thank you. If you could indicate in the chat, please, whether you are content with that proposal, please.
Chair, just once more to clarify, whilst that's
Yes, Chris.
where the money's coming from will be sorted out by the two officers. Is that correct?
Yes, I would like to think now that we've got an indication from the committee that they are supportive of that. Alan can confirm at full council, or hopefully in advance of full council, specifically where the money is coming from, and hopefully we'd be able to identify a minimum of 10,000 and actually set aside a couple of grand at least to help with running costs or maintenance costs in the first few years.
Thank you. So Alan will and Mark will come back to me with a costings where it's coming from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 agreed. 1. Jenny, is yours an against or an abstain?
It's an against. I can't support it until I know where the funds are coming from, Mr. Chairman. Sorry.
That's fine, thank you.
You do know, as I seconded, I'm for.
Lovely, thank you, Dennis. Yep, that's fine. So that's 5 for Chris. So by my maths, that's carried. Well, 6 with me. Okay, Mark, does that give you what you need to take this forward to the next stage?
Yes, I think so, Chair. If Alan's happy, that's more of an issue, really. Whether I think, as you said, we've got a process by which sort of funds will be identified and taken to full council. So, yes, I mean, certainly all I'm looking for is an in principle decision on that. So, yeah, as long as Alan's happy, I think we can move on.
Alan, are you happy?
Chair, I am, but I think the key part is really just to ensure that the ongoing maintenance costs are affordable, because I think that's going to be the one of the key criteria. And if we can look at the £10,000 that was set aside in next year's budget as a potential, I think we may find a solution in that area.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for that, Alan. If you could liaise with Mark and perhaps at least try and have a conversation with Ellis Selway and try and achieve what Jane's after in terms of a business plan, I think that'd be really useful. I certainly, appreciate those comments.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, everybody. Moving forward to 919, which is Anglia in Bloom, to discuss and decide on the Town Council's participation in this year's competition. And we've got a couple of decisions that we're looking for. First one is to decide on the level and extent of the competition, and then also to consider the composition of a working group to drive forward the council's participation. I think there always used to be a working group, and apologies if you're a member of an existing one that we're not 100% certain of, but it'd be very useful, I think, to reform and invite some new members to take that forward. I think, Brenda, you were particularly involved in this before, so I don't know if you want to say anything at this stage.
No, a lot of the members was outside of the council.
Right.
So I haven't got their contact details. There was Sylvia Arms, the railway lady. I can't think of them all. It's my old
Sex,
days.
rock and roll.
Sex, rock and roll. Yeah. But that was the group that was doing it. They was all doing their own thing.
Okay. Can I ask the committee then for your views on the level and extent that you want us to be involved in the Anglia in Bloom? And I don't know, Mark, if you wanted to comment at this stage, whether you have any views, because obviously I know Ros was particularly involved in this.
Yeah.
Got the capacity to take this forward this year. I'm guided by you guys, really.
Yeah, you've very much hit the nail on the head there in terms of what I was going to say, that this really was all Ros, and lots of sort of other external community groups, as Councillor Callum has just added as well there. So yeah, there isn't really a lot of officer capacity to put much into this, I'm afraid, as things stand. So it would have to be a sort of largely sort of member-led sort of campaign or sort of entries and things like that, if you do want to go ahead with looking at these. There are, as I said, there are a number of potential sites that are listed there, of which I would say probably the cemetery and King's House Gardens are the two that sort of that really sort of would be most competitive, I suppose, in that sense. And there's quite a number of different categories, many of which I don't think, as I said, we would be probably front runners for, given just the way Thetford's set up, or the way we're set up, certainly. So I find it quite difficult to justify spending a lot of time on this. But obviously, if members are keen to go ahead with this, we can sort of do the best that we can to sort of go with that. But yeah, as I said, it is certainly true to say there isn't a great deal of capacity to really sort of put in a sort of big campaign or a big effort into this as the staffing situation stands. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I appreciate your sort of honesty there, because a point I've made before is I'd much rather we do less but do it very well. And we are a busy committee, and I'm very keen that I don't want to overstretch people. Are there some categories? I mean, looking through the list there's quite a list. Are there some categories that you think we would particularly excel at, and maybe we should focus on one or two rather than sort of all singing, all dancing?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said, the cemetery is a really good site, and quite a few things that have happened there recently. We've actually got a meeting with the cemetery committee members on site on Friday to look at sort of more wildlife friendly measures there as well. So I think our cemetery is probably the most sort of again competitive, if you like, site that we could look at for this one. Tied in perhaps with wildfire area of the meadows at the cemetery, but yeah, I think that's the site that we directly manage that fits best with the criteria for the Anglia and Bloom categories. Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. And I can see.
Can I just say something there, Mr. Chairman?
You may.
You can highlight certain areas, but they will, because they travel to these places, they will look en route as well, because this is our problem when we was trying to do it. So we walked from around the town or drove around the town, and they would pick up. For instance, there's the road bridge that goes across Abbey and the town. So you're on the main road. They noticed that the fencing of the colour was awful. You know, so it's not just where you're taking them. So it's the whole route. So we had to design a route to try to miss out some of the places because they were terrible. So it's not as easy. This bloom thing is not as easy as what we think. You know, you can't just I'm going to take them to the cemetery. They can mark the cemetery. They will look at the route to the cemetery. King's House Gardens, they will look as they're approaching King's House Garden. You know, whether there's all litter outside and all things. They are very particular. You know, I'm just saying it is a lot of work, and without having an officer pushing like Ros did all the time, it's going to be very hard. I can't stress enough how hard it was. Jenny came to a couple, and I don't know whether she agreed with me. It was hard work.
Okay, I've got a couple of people wanting to contribute. I'll start with Dave first, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to support what Mark was saying about the cemetery. The cemetery, lots of good work being done by the ground staff in the cemetery, and it looks fantastic. And so I would support that. And as chair of the committee, I think that would be good. And on just following up from what I've noticed in the notes, it talks about photos being submitted. So it sounds to me it talks about being a virtual competition. So I was wondering whether the point that Brenda made is valid this year, but I don't know. I'm just raising that as a query. So they may not be travelling around just looking at photos. So that's my contribution. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's my understanding of it this year.
Yeah.
So we have to be very selective with our photos, Mark.
Yeah. Well, it does give us more of an opportunity. I think Councillor Cannon's point about the effort you have to put into it is still to a certain extent valid. But yes, I'm not expecting them to be actually have to escort them around the town this year. As far as I understand it, they will be judging on photos that we send them. So it does give us a little bit more possibilities for sort of picking out one or two fine sites and entering in under those categories, as it were.
Thank you. Now, I had to look up CR down the bottom left here, but I think we've got Mark Robinson. Are you there, Mr. Mayor?
I am. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I really appreciate Mark's honesty, actually, because we don't talk about capacity enough. But I wouldn't want us to completely step away from this, because it actually is a window to our town, and we're blessed more than most towns with natural assets. So maybe the conversation, not for this year, because we're well into it now, we're a further way in, but for next year is we move to the role of enablers, where we actually bring a group forward to take this forward, and we support a group rather than we. I realised that Ros did commit a lot of time to this. It was a passion. That you're right, Mark. It's we don't have the capacity. But I think we could enable by just changing the way we work a little bit and maybe get a group up and running to take this on.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Mark. Last hand, oh no, two more hands. Stuart first, then Jenny, please.
Thank you, Chair. Very much Mark's idea of a window on Thetford is something that is very valid. I think Mark Webster's point about this year being virtual probably gives us a way of just carrying the mantle on till next year by if we enter a few virtual photographs that allows the minimum officer input, but at the same time keeping us mindful that we are wanting the best for the town centre and its other areas. I was involved last year at the presentation, and yes, Brenda is right, the feedback was that they looked all around them rather than where they were told to go. And so they did feedback on the linkages not being, but I think that's good. I think that focuses our mind on where the areas for improvement should be going forward. So I would support the idea of a minimal input this year, carrying the mantle forward. And like Mark said, if we can try and get a group, because Ros did form a lot of contact going there. The people at the railway were complimented on the work they were doing. So if we are going to do a virtual one, I would hopefully we can include the railway station as well this year, Mark. Yeah, let's do a minimal input, but still keep us going with a view to organising something, because the open gardens, they do some great work. The Sex Grapple Weed, they do great work. The railway station, they're all doing this stuff. We just need somehow to pull it together under an umbrella. Yeah, let's not shut the door. Thetford's got a lot to offer, and let's tell people about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, lovely. Thank you. And last but not least, Jenny, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say, even if it's a virtual thing this year because of circumstances, and you just send in photos of the cemetery, King's House Gardens, and that, is there a group that's willing to help get these? I mean, the cemetery's lovely anyway, has been for a few years, but you also need volunteers to help with these things. We can't expect the workforce to get it all done and carry on doing it just for some photos to be taken if you haven't got a group of volunteers that will support them.
Yeah.
And it's, again, it'll be putting onto the workforce instead of the committee actually doing something for them.
Yeah, so the decisions that we've got to make today is, the first one is to decide on the level and extent of the competition. I think there's sort of a consensus on that. Could somebody just scroll down and remind me what the two categories were?
You've got quite a few categories, Chairman. Each of these, so you've got spring planting display, right down to it's your neighbourhood.
But the two that you think are probably most relevant, Mark, was the wildflower area.
Potentially, yeah, and certainly the cemetery one, yeah.
Yep.
As the key site, the key sites being cemetery and King's House Gardens as well, of course, which is again well looked after. And I'd have to check with Adam actually, which would be actually better, but it would certainly perhaps fit in with either the spring or summer bedding displays, or the local authority planting. I mean, we could put that in a couple of categories, perhaps, King's House Gardens, and the same with the cemetery.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm certainly sensing the committee are happy for us to be selective with the categories, so that gives you some guidance on that. I mean, if we're already doing the work, it makes sense to go in for the relevant sections, and taking Jenny's point on board there, we're already doing it, so there's no additional work. The second decision to make is consider the composition of a working group, and I think it was Mark Robinson that made the point that, there's no reason why we can't start now thinking longer term to next year. So I would like us to still consider establishing a working group and bringing in those other partners over the next few months in preparation for next year. What's the best way of collating that, Mark? Should we put something in the notes, and if anyone's interested, to liaise with yourself, or how do you want to do it?
That would be, yeah, that's possible. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, I'm certainly happy to join that working group. And if anyone else feels particularly passionate about it, let Mark know. And we might have to pick your brains, Brenda, about other partners that we might want to involve. I know the group that does the work at the train station's already been mentioned, and I can see that Dave's put Charles Burrows Centre. Obviously, they've done a lot to their grounds up there, so we can take that forward over the year, but let Mark know if you're interested. And one way or t'other, we shall have two new councillors that will be eager to do work in a month's time, so one of them maybe, or both, may be interested as well. They'll be fresh, so they can get on and join whatever they want to join. Brilliant. Does that deal with everything you want from Anglia and Bloom item, Mark?
Yeah, I think that certainly covers the decision that's being asked for, isn't it, basically? Yep.
Yeah, I think so. Moving on to 920 then, Marketplace Water Trough, to discuss the refurbishment of the Marketplace Water Trough to enable the public to refill their water bottles. This is not something I'm particularly knowledgeable about, but basically we want to know how the committee want the trough planted or not planted. and how they want how to market the availability of drinking water. I think there's a little bit in the notes about this, but do you have anything, Mark, that you want to add to this one? I mean, I know it's mainly the Town Clerk's project, this one.
Yeah, again, I'm afraid I don't really know anything more about it than you, or in fact, probably quite a bit less, actually. So, yes, I'll have to leave this to you and get back to you if there's any questions that I can't answer.
See a couple of hands, but I suspect they're legacy hands. So if you don't want to make a point, if you just pop your hand down, and I can see Jane first, followed by Stuart, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And a bit to turn things around and be extremely positive again and put the positive pants back on. I love this idea. I think it's wonderful. I think it's a brilliant means to combat plastic pollution, and certainly I've become something of an addict towards reusable water bottles, which probably defeats the objective of it. But I think if we can offer something like this in our town centre, it goes a long way to supporting, one, healthy living, and two, our environmental objectives. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. You didn't ask where the money's coming from, Jane, for this one.
That's because I read my paperwork, Mr. Chairman, and it's highlighted as part of the heritage restoration linking to the Guildhall.
Ah, jolly good. Stuart, please.
No, I think it's a great idea, and as a father with two children who drink a lot of water, it's always useful to have somewhere you can refill your bottles and keep them hydrated. And I do always think that shipping water halfway across the world for the sake of bottled water is always a crazy idea. But the idea of, I think, probably keeping the horse trough planted up as it is and have the tap on the outside with a press button so it cuts out would probably be the easiest way forward, because it is quite a nice floral display. And as you can see from the picture there, it does add a little bit of colour to the marketplace area. So as we look at that picture on the left-hand side, probably have the tap pointing away. Obviously, you need some kind of drain there to make sure we don't get flooded, and you want a spring-loaded tap that does turn off rather than runs on. But hopefully, we can invest in a tap and a drain and get this going, because I think it is a good idea.
Lovely, thanks, Stuart. Brenda, please.
Yeah, I also said that I've said before, I think this is a fantastic idea. The trouble with these troughs is if you go around London, you know, where we used to stop and get a drink of water out of the old tin cup, they're gone, they've been taken away, and I think it's such a shame because it's history. And I just think it's a fantastic idea. My son always drinks water, so wherever he goes, he takes a bottle of water. So ideal, he can stop off. You know, his water bottle might have got a bit warm, pour that away and sort of fresh up with a bit of cold. Fantastic idea.
Lovely. Thank you, Brenda. I think it's really positive. I'm sensing a consensus for planted. I mean, I would certainly agree that linking back to our previous discussion, any opportunities that we can take to introduce sort of planting and colour, I think should be welcomed, and this is certainly one of them. Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, I'm, as would be, very much in support of it. I think it's a very good idea, but we got to make sure we have the appropriate signs there about that it is fresh drinking water and everything.
Yep, I'm sure that's noted. Yeah, other people have indicated in the chat that they are happy. Chris Harvey, as I spent much of my youth sitting on this feature, it's a great idea. You better not have damaged it, Chris, when you've been sitting on
it. Eating fish and chips and drinking beer from the Red Lion.
You weighed a lot less then.
Very good, thank you. I'm only teasing you. I think that probably deals with that one, Mark. I mean, it certainly gives Tina a steer as to, you know, we're very happy and supportive of what's going on, basically.
Yeah, super. I think we, as you say, we know about the connections to the things that have been asked to look at there. Connections to the drinking water supply. Well, that's a yes, isn't it? Type of tap has been suggested, and if other members are happy with that, I think we can go ahead and the drain beneath that. Signage, yes. Planting. I think the Guildhall bid calls for perennial and bee friendly planting. So again, as long as everyone's happy with that, we will go ahead with giving that kind of steer to the contractors. And does the committee have any hints or suggestions for marketing on or the supply? There is a Norfolk-wide campaign coming up, I believe, to reduce single-use plastics, so we can certainly tie in with that. But if any committee members have any other suggestions for marketing, then we welcome received at any stage. Otherwise, as you say, I think we can go ahead with that.
Lovely. The only other thing I would note, just on the sort of heritage side of it, is I always think the Fyson family are quite a sort of understated part of Thetford's heritage. I mean, they really were very generous to Thetford. So maybe as we're sort of launching this and the trough itself was donated, we might, do a bit to promote Fyson. I can't remember if it's Tom or Joe that did the piece on Anna Mims on Facebook last year, but a little bit to promote Fyson family at the same time as doing the water aspect and the environment aspect. I think would be really useful. Definitely an interesting part of Thetford's heritage. Right, moving on. How are we doing for time? Oh, I don't have to suspend the standing order yet if we get through quickly.
If I can come back in, Mr. Chairman, I've got my hand up.
Oh, sorry, I missed you as I was rabbiting on.
It's not a negative point, but I think we need to look at the way that the tap works. Do we switch it off overnight so that people don't leave it running, this sort of thing? It's just minor things for when it actually goes in. Or is there a way that, the tap only fills up one bottle and then it stops, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think the push button, we don't want the continuous pour option. Needs to be the push button, like in public loos, basically. But I saw Mark nodding as you was making that point.
Yeah, I just think we should be looking at. Okay, thank you.
Lovely. 921 then, folks. Christmas lights installation tender to review the Christmas light installation specification and propose any amendments. We need to make a decision on any amendments to the current display that must be included in the specification. So already thinking about Christmas later this year. Forgive me, I must have read it. Was the specification included in the pack that went out?
It's not in the main presentation pack, Chair. I believe it was sent out separately by the town clerk.
That's why I haven't printed it off yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've got it handy, but hopefully members have all seen that.
Oh, try on. Maybe, is it just me or have we not been sent that? Jane, have you got your hand up?
It's not just you, Chair. I haven't seen it, and I've just searched my emails using the word tender as a clue, and the last tender that I've got in there, I've got ROS for Playboat, but I do not have anything in relation to the Christmas lights, I'm afraid. So if we haven't had it, can I suggest we defer it, please?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was just me, so I'm glad it's not just me. Dave, have you got it, or are you just telling us it's Christmas?
Well, I was actually just trying to do a search in my email, but I used the wrong keyboard and put it in the put it in the chat. So, but Christmas won't be far away, so just be prepared. But I haven't found it yet, so I don't remember seeing it.
Okay, brilliant. Well, we can't discuss something that we haven't seen, so on that basis, we'll defer it this month, and we'll get it circulated and picked up next month. That's the benefit of doing it nice and early. Hopefully, that doesn't cause the officers any problems in terms of timescales, but we'll mop it up next month. 92220, hire of outdoor space. We've got 2 applications to consider. See, it says on here lead chair, but I'm not sure if I know much more than what's been circulated. So I'm going to look to Mark and Alan to see if you've got anything to add to the emails that we both had.
Alan, have you got anything on this? Because I'm afraid I don't.
Chair, I think I have a little bit more information. I think what we've been approached by the fun fair. We were promised information which unfortunately hasn't come. We're a little bit reticent to demand information if this committee is not going to support the event. So we're looking for a kind of in principle decision for this and for the Wheels on the Field event. We're very conscious that all the paperwork's not in place on the Wheels on the Field event, but like I say, if we go and demand insurance, for example, and we say no, I think we will actually kind of antagonize our organisers because they're going to incur expense that they wouldn't otherwise incur. So from I know that they're down as two separate items, but the first item is, do we support the fun fair in principle, provided that the paperwork is submitted, it's complete and it's in terms of our requirements. And the second event will be very similar. Do we support it in principle? I think they have on the second event, they have to go to Brecon Council because the size of the event is greater than 500 people. So there's still some other processes, but I wouldn't like us as a council to demand certain things. And then at the end, when we receive it, we say, no, we're not interested in supporting it. So I do apologize if we don't have the paperwork. It's not for a lack of trying from our side. We have really been pushing it.
That's fine. I completely appreciate that, Alan. I think given that with both of these examples, they're not new, both of them have happened before. I mean, obviously the fun fair is regular, or perhaps not regular during COVID. But in terms of the principle, I'm not predetermining what the committee is going to decide, but I think the principle is fine. We would, I suspect, support it as a committee, subject to you as officers being happy with the paperwork and the various, risk assessments and insurances. But if all you're asking is a principal decision, we can come to that conclusion or not in a moment, I'm sure, but completely accept there's other bits of paperwork that still needs to come forward. I'll take them in the order they came. So Jane first, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, pleased to hear what you just said. Ultimately, this committee and this council has agreed to the hire of outdoor spaces in principle as per our policy for the hire of outdoor spaces, with the addendum that we made last year about the COVID risk assessment, which I was really pleased that you pulled up on previously, Terry, and reminded us about. So ultimately, the principle exists that, yeah, as long as they supply all the information that we require, they can use it, regardless of who they are, what they are, and so on. But I do have concerns that, we require proof of insurance as part of our policy. But to turn around and go, well, we're not going to have insurance until we've got your approval. Well, actually, our policy states this. Our policy has stated that for a number of years. That is the playing field that we are on. A simple yes or no answer will suffice. We have the policy and it's for the officers to deal with it from there. I can't remember a time when we've had the hire of outdoor space where it's been outside of our policy come to us. So it's within the policy. Let's just get on and deal with it. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you for that, Jane. Appreciate that.
Chair, just before you go on, there's a couple of messages in the chat from the town clerk regarding the Christmas lights.
I saw them, and without being unkind to the town clerk, I don't like using the chat as a dialogue box. If the town clerk's happy to speak and contribute, I would very much welcome those contributions.
Hi, yes, I am here, so I can chat. I've just come out of another meeting and I'd started listening in, and when it came into that moment, and I was like, "Oh crikey!" Right.
You come in at the end. We're nearly done.
Yes, I do apologise that I'm coming in, literally sliding in at the last moment, but I've just been having mayor-making meetings. What I was actually after, I do apologise if this has been misconstrued, is you should have been sent as part of the pack, I believe there was a diagram of where all the current lights were, because we're due to go out to tender for the new Christmas lights contract. I was really just after whether we're content with the display as it is for this year, or whether you wanted extra lights, and if you did, where you would want them, so that I could get prices for that. That's kind of all I'm after at this stage, really. Just if we're happy with what we've got for this year, and if not, that will give me an opportunity to go out and get some prices for you before we actually have to put the tender out.
That's fine. Thank you for that. I clocked Jane shaking her head, and I think I inadvertently shook my head as well. I can't remember seeing that diagram. So could I suggest we circulate that, seeing as we've dealt with that item, circulate it, and then if people do have any observations, to feed them into you direct.
Yeah, that would be really, really helpful. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if that hasn't come out. I thought that it had been sent out as part of the presentation pack.
No, I mean, well, certainly Jane and myself haven't seen it. So that's fine. We can, we can mop that up with direct feedback. I think that'd be really useful to do that, separate to the meeting. So
yeah, I mean, that was just an initial heads up, really, if we were going to have any change of direction.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So moving back to hire of outdoor space. I don't see anybody else indicating. Jenny, did you? I support both. Let's get back to normality. Yeah, that's fine. So I don't see anyone else indicating. So can I have a sort of proposer and a seconder to give the officers a steer on this one, please? I think
Mike's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry, I can't see that on mine. Mike?
Sorry about that. If I go into chat, I can't get back again, which would obviously please most people. But anyway, there you go. I just wanted to check the location of the fun fair. Is that Melford Common? Is that where it is? Where is the fun fair to be held? Is it on Melford Common?
I don't know the answer to that because I haven't seen any of the paperwork. So, Alan, could you confirm the location?
Sorry, Chair. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, is the for the fun fair one? We know the wheels on the field is Barnham Common. Is the fun fair application requesting use of Melford Common or Barnham Common?
It's Melford Common, if I remember correctly.
Lovely.
Terry, in that case, just a note of concerns, because something has changed in that area since the last time it was held. I think it's an excellent activity, all in favour in principle. However, we have now got to a point where we are planting young trees, whips or whatever, around the various sites, including the triangle of land that lies between Nunsbridges Road and the St Barnabas flats. That area has traditionally been used by people attending the fun fair, as indeed with the fireworks, as a car park. I am concerned that the whips will disappear on the wheels if we don't make some sort of effort at least to point out to people that you have to be careful to get onto that area in order to park, not just driving over small canes, which may be hardly visible if you're at the wheel of the car and looking how to avoid bashing your car on a pavement. So I don't want to undo the work that Mark and the volunteers have made putting those whips in.
Thank you. I think Mark and Alan can take that up if we agree to the principle, but ask them to ensure the plan and the risk assessment takes on board. I'm quite sure Mark could be looking after his plants that he needs to trees that he needs to put in. So, but it's worth mentioning that. Thank you, Jane. Noted. Thank you for your contributions today. How are we doing for time?
I've got my hand up, Mr. Mayor. I nearly called you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Brenda. What would you like to say?
Well, I'd just like to say that where Mike is talking about, you're talking about the outside Barnabas. Yes, they do send some disabled people over there if they can't get them into our car park. And I don't know whether our car park will be clear then, Mark, on Barnham Common, because there will be a lot of cars and they have a mini fun fair. There will be a lot going over there. Don't get me wrong, it's a fantastic event and I'd like to see it go ahead because, they come from all over and it celebrates Thetford. And it is a fantastic event. But as Mike has said, all the little trees that you're putting in, you need to make them, the event holders, aware that you don't want them knocked down, and sort of plot their way onto that land if Bretland allow them to park there again. So I think that corner is Bretland, isn't it?
It's mown by Bretland, a lot of those triangles, but actually owned by us. So yes, I may be asking at some point for a purchase order for a few more rolls of the hazard tape. I think we'll probably have to go all along there with some tape for those weekends perhaps, or otherwise mark the entrances where people can go into park.
Thank you, Brenda, and thank you, Mike. Similar points. Before we move on, folks, could I just ask, seeing as we're approaching 2 hours, that we agreed, we're almost finished, but if we could just suspend standing order 3W, I think it is, so we're allowed to go past 2 hours. If you could just indicate if you're happy to do.
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. I don't think I've missed anybody. So what we're being asked, and I'm happy to propose that we agree in principle to number 1, which is the fun fair, and number 2, which is the Wheels on the Field event, but both subject to officers being content with the relevant risk assessments and insurance being in place. Are committee members happy with that?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Lovely. Is one of you particularly happy to second it, just for the minutes, because Chris Grimman will tell me off otherwise.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Brenda. There you are, Chris. You can't tell me off this week.
Thank you.
Alan, does that, I think you're the main one dealing with this, does that give you everything you need to deal with both of those applications?
That does. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you, and hopefully all of the paperwork you need is forthcoming for those. 92320, any correspondence to note? Any correspondence received? Anything from yourself, Mark?
Nothing further, Chair.
Lovely, thank you. Any correspondence, Alan, from yourself?
There is, Chair. There was an application to operate a food trade at Castle Park. It arrived too late to put on this particular agenda, so it's just to sensitise members and the applicant that will be put onto the May agenda for this committee to consider. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Look forward to seeing that. 92420, community engagement, to discuss any and agree any consultation or media release required. Do any committee members have any suggestions of any releases that we should be issuing after today's agenda?
If you're thinking of looking at the Thetford in Bloom, and you know, I think if you look back in the papers, you'll see Rosie's contact. It could be that you actually publicise that out. Does anybody wish to come forward and help? Any group?
Yep, I think that's a good one. Thank you, Brenda. We'll make a note of that. No, that's really good. And lastly, 92520, committee officers update. Anything from Mark since the agenda was released? Couldn't imagine anything else.
We'll be delighted to know nothing further to add. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. So just a sliver over 2 hours. Thank you all very much. We got through an awful lot of business there in the 2 hours. So very grateful for all your contributions, and thank you, Mark.